Well, good day and welcome to a most interesting FS Club seminar today. Today, we're going to be chatting about a world that for many people might seem rather mysterious. That's the world of accreditation, certification, and standards, in a world which personally I've been involved with for nearly 40 years. So I'm really quite excited about it. We have today Matt Gantley, who's coming in from the United Kingdom Accreditation Service. We'll learn more about that later, but the sole national accreditation body for the United Kingdom. And a disclaimer, I have been on the board of UKAS for nearly 15 years, so I happen to know a fair bit here, but it is interesting. And he's going to be talking to us today about accreditation, facilitating trade and supporting UK PLC, or as it said in the calling notice, the UK's secret weapon in trade in many, many respects. But we'll get on to that in a moment. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Michael Mainelli. I'm the Executive Chairman of ZIEN. And I am always delighted to be doing these webinars because they're fascinating and interesting and we all learn stuff. But it's only possible thanks to our sponsors. And here's a list of our many, many sponsors ranging from Invest Northern Ireland on the left down to Volante on the bottom right, or Cuff Associates. So a huge range. And what makes them really special as sponsors is their tolerance for allowing us to range widely and freely across just about anything to do with finance, technology, or the social purposes in life. Now, today's agenda is fairly similar to many of the ones that we've held in the past. My job is really to get out of the way and let you speak to Matt as ever. I won't read out biography details. They're on the website when you signed on, and you can go back and reread them and also get further materials. The webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be posted in approximately 48 hours. The slides will be available. And very finally, what Matt and I both want is to have a good discussion today. So after Matt has concluded just around 4 o'clock, we will be inviting you to ask questions and comments. You can start your questions and comments at any time. Please use the GoToWebinar facility. If you send me an email, that's very kind of you, but I won't get it until after. I'm actually going to be listening to the webinar and not playing with my email. So please do ask any questions or make comments, and Matt and I would be really thrilled to be able to handle those as we go forward. Anyway, Matt, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to hand you control, and I'd like to say basically, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. First of all, Michael, may I say thank you very much to you and to the Financial Services Club for this opportunity to speak to you about a topic, of course, that we believe adds real tangible benefit to the UK economy and has a very valuable role to play for government, the public, enterprise, and especially the financial services sector. As Michael mentioned, my name is Matt Gantley. I'm the Chief Executive of UKAS, and I'm really delighted to be here today to talk to you about the following topics. So what I first of all want to do is define what accreditation is, and most importantly, why it matters. Why is it relevant to us in our positions? Why is it relevant to industry? Why is it relevant to the public? Why is it relevant to financial services? So I want to also describe who we are and where do we fit in. What is our attributes of governance? What gives us the position that we have? Also want to contrast the elements of standards and accreditation, particularly in facilitating international trade, and also to describe what a mutual recognition agreement is and how that supports a very important principle, which I'll repeat time and time again, is accredited once, accepted everywhere, which is a key part of ensuring that we reduce technical barriers to trade, that we facilitate and support trade. And what I'll also then do is also give some more examples of how accreditation works in practice. So, first of all, why does accreditation matter? It matters for many, many reasons, but at work, home and play, alongside standards, accreditation is the hidden infrastructure that ensures that we can be confident in our daily lives. From the very moment that we wake up in our beds where the fabrics are tested for fire safety, to the coffee that we have in the morning that is the water is tested, to the butter on our toast, which is assured for food safety, to the emissions from our cars, to the calibration of the speed cameras, to the construction products where we would work or we would live, to the range of standards that are in place to ensure that events are managed safely, and even to the drug testing or anti-doping testing of athletes. Accreditation, in many thousands of very small ways, ensures that the products and the services that we use are safe and legal and have the appropriate level of quality and performance. So, where do you see those signs of assurance in our day-to-day lives, and how does UKAS back that all up? Well, you will see from just some examples of these brands in front of you. There are many that you will see day to day on the back of your computer or your mobile phone. For example, the BSI kite mark or the UL symbol, especially on electrical products, or the CE mark that is used throughout the European Economic Area as an indicator of health, safety, and environmental standards. But also in more commercial products, we see, for example, in food assurance and animal husbandry assurance with the Red Tractor scheme, the British Retail Consortium Global Standards, gas safety, or even the balls, the diameter, the mass of national lottery balls in the pick every week. They are accredited. And a great example in the financial services sector is the Fair Banking Foundation, which I'll come back to later. All of these are underpinned by accreditation. So the United Accreditation symbol is the symbol that goes behind, and often maybe it's silently or invisibly behind those symbols, those brands of assurance. It is in many ways the final stamp of approval that testing, inspection and certification and also verification is done so consistently, competently and impartially. The United Kingdom Crown and Tick is so well respected around the world that there are many countries, for example, in Japan, in China, in India, and in the Middle East, it is the preferred form of accreditation, especially from an export perspective. So we should be very proud of the role that UKAS plays in taking forward in the name of the United Kingdom. So what is accreditation? Well, this is where it's a little bit more technical, but accreditation is the formal recognition of competence of an organization to undertake a conformity assessment activity, and therefore they're called conformity assessment bodies. What are the examples of that? Well, they include testing, inspection, and certification and verification. They are the four major forms of conformity assessment. Let's make them real-time examples. Well, testing, one of the biggest news items over the last couple of months has been the COVID-19 testing. And so the laboratories, the pathology laboratories, are accredited for that activity. Inspection, for example, passenger lifts or construction products or engineering products, or the products that will go between over borders, for example, the shipping of grain and the inspection for that activity. Or certification, the 1.2 million ISO 9000 quality management certificates that there are throughout the world. And another example of verification is in the EU emissions trading scheme. And in the future, verification and validation is going to become a much more important standard, especially for blockchain and the validation of information relating to cloud-based technologies. So behind all of these different elements of accreditation and conformity assessment are appropriate standards. So one way to understand the way that accreditation works is to think of it as a final level of control before government. Now, we are sponsored and by the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. We have a memorandum of understanding with them. They've appointed us as through the accreditation regulations as the national accreditation body. And throughout that hierarchy, we accredit conformity assessment bodies, test, calibrate, certificate, inspect, or independently evaluate the products and services that ultimately government, consumers, and purchasers then use, ultimately with the purpose to provide confidence, trust, and assurance. And throughout that hierarchy is a series of standards, international standards and national standards, to make sure that that process is properly applied. So because of that framework of quality between standards and accreditation, the approach for quality infrastructure has been recognized by many global institutes, for example, OECD and the Global Bank Group. And they've been a major proponent of describing and promoting and supporting the development of accreditation standards right across the world, particularly because of the valuable role it plays in trade. And actually, this slide comes from a World Banking Group publication where they wanted to express the intricate way in which the national standards or standards bodies and accreditation bodies work, where the standards body creates the promise or the requirement, and the accreditation body ensures through conformity assessment the verification of the implementation of that promise or standard or requirement is done so competently, consistently, and impartially. But there's also very essential element of this national quality infrastructure, and that is metrology. Metrology, which sets down the definition of units, as well as ensuring there is a traceability of calibration certificates, especially for laboratory accreditation. So that quality infrastructure, as I mentioned, has been reported and investigated by many different organizations, and particularly OECD, the United Nations, and World Bank Group. And there are many aspects of studies which have shown the very clear improvement that has been made through the development of quality infrastructure on productivity, on innovation, and improving export. One study done by Birkbeck University proved that the value of accreditation in the United Kingdom alone was around 300 million in direct uplift of the value of conformity assessment, and another 300 million in terms of indirect impact on the broader economy. So with the cost of accreditation of around 30 million per annum, the overall impact is quite significant and very valuable, and therefore a very important part of sponsorship for government and international bodies. So how does the international framework work? Well, accreditation is an international process, particularly because it's important to ensure there is equivalence and acceptance of results, and especially to remove technical barriers to trade. The idea behind a multilateral agreement or mutual recognition agreement is to establish between economies and across the world the principle that if something is tested or inspected or certified, then it should be accepted everywhere, because there is mutual recognition of those accreditation bodies all around the world, and that all accreditation bodies operate to the same standard, which is 17011. Now, the way that that's governed is there are international governing bodies such as International Accreditation Forum and the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, who bring together all the accreditation bodies to ensure that they apply the standards and practices on a level playing field. Also, on a regional level is regional groups, and UKAS is a member of the European Accreditation Body. What you need to know from this slide is that there are over 102 accreditation bodies that are part of this mutual recognition, and you also need to note that there is a very broad coverage across testing, calibration, medical inspection, and proficiency testing. What you need to know from this slide is that all of the major economies are covered in terms of mutual recognition agreements. And so all those economies, particularly involved in trade, are properly covered. And so there is an opportunity to ensure that there is a mutual recognition of testing. What you need to know from this slide is that the conformity assessment bodies that we accredit are large in number and are growing in terms of testing, inspection, and certification. There are over 60,000 laboratories who are accredited to 17025. As well as there are over 8,000 certification bodies. So the market is large, and there is no restriction in terms of capacity to deliver those services. So let me just take a step back, because I've run forward in terms of the explanation of many things, to say, why does accreditation matter? And we talked it in terms of its economic impact around in the UK, around 600 million benefit. But ultimately, is that the purpose of accreditation? What I would put forward that the purpose of accreditation is to ensure that government and the public have a final organization that they can call upon to ensure that testing, inspection, and certification is done to the highest level of standards, because that is ultimately so important to the products and the services that we use in our daily lives. And the perfect example in most contextual situation is the situation we had with PPE. the ability to ensure that there was enough personal protective equipment across a range of, for example, gowns or face masks was severely limited by the fact that the import of those products was sidestepping the accreditation process and the testing and inspection of those products. Therefore, for example, we see in the case of 4,000 gowns coming in from Turkey, which didn't meet the appropriate standards and had to go back. So that's just one example where personal protective equipment can affect the quality and the safety of the public, and so why it is so very, very important. Quickly, a background about UKAS. We were founded, or we can trace our origin back for 54 years to 1996 to the British Calibration Service, but we were consolidated 25 years ago as United Kingdom Accreditation Service. We are a not-for-profit, non-profit distributing organisation. We're a company limited by guarantee. We're given our appointment as the public authority organisation through the national accreditation regulations. We have 265 staff, but what's of more interest is we have 190 assessment managers who are supported through the delivery of around 33,000 assessment days of nearly 3,000 customers, of over 3,000 accreditations, using a broad range of technical experts, forensic experts, physicists, calibration experts, microbiologists. They are the technical experts to ensure there is rigor in the accreditation process. And just for information, on the right-hand side, you will see a range of examples of accreditation bodies that you may have come across in your day-to-day lives, or maybe they certify your organisation. What is our governance? Well, this is an important slide, particularly because it sets up the approach of which we run our organisation, how we set our strategy, and as well as we make sure that there's transparency in our processes. We have 4 different colleges of governance. They are government, as you can see, a range of departments, customer groups, business membership organisations, especially the FSB for small businesses, and the CBI for large businesses, and a range of professional institutes as well. So they are our governance process, making sure that we have the right strategy, making sure we're focused in the right way. What I also want to show you is the size of the test, inspection and certification sector. As you will see from this slide, the sector is estimated to be worth currently 200 billion euros, but that's only representing around 40% of the whole accessible marketplace. But at present, 60% of that availability for testing, inspection, and certification is sourced in-house by government or companies, and they haven't yet outsourced it. There is still opportunity for growth in that area. You will note from this slide that the revenues of the top tick companies in terms of euros, you will note that it's a very fragmented marketplace, and the top 10 players in the market only represent around 40% market share of the total marketplace. And there are several analyst reports that are available for you to look at more information. It's a very much a studied sector, a very stable, strong marketplace. You will also need to note that the marketplace is changing significantly, especially driven by digital innovation. Smart sensors, cloud security, blockchain technology are fundamentally changing the way in which an assessment might be done, a test, inspection, or certification might be done, because of the economies of scale that can be achieved through improved technologies. And then a lovely example I would give you to have a look at for more research is the My Story example of the My Story system created by DNVGL, which is based on a blockchain technology, allowing validation and verification of information that relates to a whole range of products and services. But the case study relates to wine, and it's very much worthwhile looking. And I will make sure that the link to that is on the slide when it gets circulated. So let's move on. We've talked about the sector. I want to talk about government and the role that we play. I won't labour this point, but we play a very important part of balancing the role of government, from balancing a rules-based, goals-based approach where inspection of a requirement may be insourced by government through their own inspection staff, to a much more market-driven solution. Accreditation and independent conformity assessment allows a whole spectrum of methodologies from earned recognition to co-regulation. And that is a very cost-effective route of which to allow improvement or the achievement of objectives, quality, health and safety, or environmental objectives for government. So let's look at some examples of those. There's lots of different examples, and all of these are available on the UKAS website for further information. But let's just take the example of the forensic science regulator. Instead of inspection directly of the police forces around the country for their forensic laboratories, that is provided and delivered by UKAS accreditation. So all forensic laboratories are in a process of getting accreditation to show their competence, their impartiality, to show that there's systems in place to meet the right standards. Drinking water inspectorate, food safety, emissions trading, farm and food assurance schemes, building regulations, and especially at this time, pathology laboratories and healthcare testing is all accredited. So we play a very important role in supporting regulation of government in a very cost-effective way. So I want to move on now just to briefly touch upon some examples of accreditation that will relate much more to the financial services sector. And one I wanted just to pick as an example was ISO 27001, which is one of the fastest growing management system standards for information security management. It's based on that plan, do, check, act approach that you will see for ISO 9000 or 14000 for environmental management. And it is a very rigorous approach of which to understand data security requirements and put appropriate controls in place. And just as an example of a certificate, this one again is from DNVGL, which shows you where they have a QR code on the certificate, allowing the purchaser or the consumer of that certificate to pick it up, scan it, and look at the whole chain of veracity of that certificate. So financial services, well, this is an area we're very keen to grow. We think we have a very important role to play in supporting the development of standards and the validation of those requirements. We think we have a role to play in voluntary regulation and supporting mandatory regulation as well, doing that in a cost-effective route. A really good example of accreditation is the Fair Banking Foundation, where there is a scheme put in place to ensure good quality criteria for ethical banking, particularly in relating to private loans, credit cards, mortgages, etc. We work with the Gambling Commission. We have an accreditation scheme for anti-bribery. We've worked on a new standard of ethical behaviour in personal finance planning. And very recently, we're also working with the ISO and British Standards Institute on the green finance strategy and sustainable finances, as you'll see. So, in summary, UKAS is the national accreditation body appointed by government. We play a really important role in putting in place and managing mutual recognition agreements. We help to promote trade. We help to promote productivity and support innovation. We help to protect business and consumers, and we play a vital role in supporting alternatives to regulation. So thank you very much for your attention. If there's any more information and any questions I can answer, we'd be delighted to do that. And this final slide just shows them some other sources of information about accreditation in the UK and globally.
Anyway, we could go on for some time. Can you hold on just for a moment, Matt, while I give two sets of thanks. The first thanks, as ever, has to go to these amazing sponsors of ours who are extremely kind in letting us range, as I said earlier, widely and freely. And please do not underestimate this very, very, very important and yet quietly ticking away area that makes us function trade-wise in both goods and services. And an approach that I commend heartily as what I've always called a voluntary standards market. And I don't understand how anybody who's into free markets can't recognize that they need a bit of control and that this is a market way of establishing that control. So there we are. I'd also like to thank you, the audience. Without you, there'd be no point in holding these. I think that's fairly self-evident. Matt, do you mind auditing them? Is that okay? Just make sure we got our numbers out there. But you held everybody on till the very end, actually. We do have more webinars coming up, as you know. The most exciting one is hard to pick, but we do have Tokyo tomorrow with the former governor of the Bank of Japan. And we do have the FSG anti-money laundering one I referred to on Thursday. A dear friend of mine is going to be Brendan May on Friday in conversation about his life, particularly to do with sustainability and ESG and palm oils. and some amazing work that Brendan has been doing for many years. He was the man who almost single-handedly got the Marine Stewardship Council going, which quite interestingly is also a certification approach to sustainable fishing, the Happy Ticky fish mark that you see everywhere, which is audited in the same way as Matt described UKAS. And finally, I mentioned on Wednesday, we're going to be talking with the ESOP Center about maintaining all employee share plans in what is a tough circumstances. So, but Matt, the real thing is thank you. I was so pleased you decided to tackle this because it's not easy. It's a very complex area that's built up over many years and yet has been rationalized in a lot of great ways. You explained it top to bottom, which is certainly what I wanted. And I hope perhaps we might be able to come back in future and delve into some more specific areas. But unfortunately, in these days of remote working and webinars, I'm afraid all I can give you is audience applause on my little banger. So a hearty round of thanks to you for coming on. We hope to see you again soon, and all of our audience as well. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.